My name is Aris Thorn. I am 100 years old, and I am not afraid to die. But I wasn't always this way. For most of my life, fear was a constant companion. It was a cold, heavy stone right here in my gut. It shaped every choice I ever made. Every single hesitation. I feel that stone now, only as a memory, a smooth, cool pebble when I sit in this sunlit room. My hands shake too much to write, so I'm talking to you instead. To explain this piece, I have to go back to the beginning, to the source of the stone. Let me tell you what happened. It started when I was 8 years old. My father took me out on Lake Serene in a little rowboat. The sky turned a sickly green-black in minutes. The storm hit with a fury I can still feel. The wind screamed. The water was like iron mountains. My father, a strong man, panicked. I saw pure terror in his eyes as the boat filled with water. He saved me. He hauled me to shore. But he was never the same after that. Jumpy, grim, always watching the sky. That day planted the seed. The stone had its first layer. That childhood terror built my whole life. I avoided risks. I chose the safe path in my job, in love. I met my wife, Elara. She was a painter, colors under her fingernails. My fear attracted her. She saw a steady man, but it frustrated her too. I remember her taking my face in her hands. Her hands were stained with paint. She said, "Aris, you're building a fortress, but you're locking yourself inside." She was the joy of my life, and I was too afraid to fully step into the light with her. The fortress held until the diagnosis. At 72, the doctor said the words, pancreatic cancer. The stone in my gut turned to molten lead. I saw the same terror from that storm now in Elara's eyes. I chose the strong treatment, not from hope, from sheer clawing dread. The first chemotherapy was a cold horror. I sat in a vinyl chair. Poison dripped into my veins. The lights hummed. It was a war I was losing. Then, one Tuesday, I was alone in a clinic room, sick and hollow. A young nurse named Leo checked my vitals. He was humming, a soft sound. I snapped at him. "How can you hum in a place like this?" He didn't flinch. He looked right at me. He said, "My grandfather died here last month, room 3. He said the humming helped." His words disarmed me. I asked about his grandfather. Leo sat down. He told me about Silas, a tailor. Silas faced his sickness with a calm I didn't understand. He told Leo, "I've been rehearsing for this my whole life, by loving things I knew I'd lose." In his last weeks, he taught Leo how to sew a perfect buttonhole. He told stories of every customer whose wedding he'd tailored. He died mid-stitch, peaceful. That phrase, rehearsing by loving, it echoed in my hollow chest. I went home and I looked at Ilara. I really looked. I began to see things. I saw the tiredness in Ilara's shoulders as she cared for me. I saw the love under the fear. I noticed the afternoon light in our living room, dust motes dancing. I'd never stopped to watch. The stone was still there, but a crack appeared. I started asking Ilara about her paintings, about the stories behind the colors, questions I'd been too afraid to ask before. This new attention changed everything, even as my body failed. I told Ilara I was stopping the treatment. The fear was still there, a cold whisper, but a new clarity was louder. We made a pact. No more hospitals. We would spend my time in our garden. She cried. Then she agreed. Our children were angry, terrified, but for the first time, I was the calm one. I was not giving up. I was choosing something else. The garden became our world. And there, I remembered, I was 10, helping my grandmother in her rose garden. I asked her if she was scared of dying. She cut off a dead bloom. She said, "Child, does the rose fear the fall? It's part of the dance. The petal goes back to the soil, so the bush can grow stronger." I didn't get it then. Sitting in my garden decades later, I finally did. That was the final tool. I began to work. I didn't just wait to die. I started rehearsing. That's what Silas the tailor called it. I recorded stories from my grandkids on an old tape machine. I wrote letters to Ilara, one for each birthday I knew I'd miss. I told her all the things I'd been too scared to say. I called an old friend, Ben. We'd had a fight years before. I said I was sorry for my part in it. He cried. I cried. It was hard, but it felt like cleaning a wound. I sat with the fear, too. I'd go out to the garden in the morning. I'd feel that cold stone in my gut. I'd say, "Okay, I see you. You're trying to protect me. Thank you." I didn't fight it. I let it sit there. And slowly it changed. It got smaller, smoother. It wasn't the boss of me anymore. It was just a part of the scenery. I loved my life, every bit of it. The smell of dirt in the garden, the sound of Ilara's brush on the canvas. I loved it knowing it would end. And then, the twist. I went for a checkup. The doctor looked confused. He ran more tests. He said the word remission. The cancer was going away. The doctors were shocked. They talked about miracles. I wasn't shocked. I'd already done the work. The next 28 years, they were a gift. But they were different. The fear was gone, truly gone. I lived. I really lived. Elara and I traveled. We went to Paris. She showed me where she studied art. I finally saw her paintings in a real gallery. People stood and looked at them. I was so proud. We had time. We welcomed great-grandchildren. I held them, and I wasn't afraid of the future. I was just happy to be there. When Elara got sick 5 years ago, I cared for her. In our garden, she was tired. She held my hand and said, "You're not afraid anymore, are you?" I said, "No, I'm not." She smiled. Good. When she passed, I grieved. It hurt so much. But it was a clean hurt. There was no terror in it. I had loved her, knowing I would lose her. That made all the difference. That made all the difference. But here's the thing. After she was gone, the house was so quiet. I'd sit in the garden and wait to feel that peace again. But it was gone too. For the first time in decades, the fear came back. Not the old stone. This was worse. It was a hollow, screaming wind inside my chest. I'd done the work. I'd loved knowing I would lose. And I lost her. And now I was still here, alone. What was the point of all that rehearsal if I just had to sit in the empty theatre? I was angry at myself, at the cancer for leaving, at the universe for giving me extra time just to take her away. I stopped going into the garden. I just sat in her studio, in her chair, surrounded by her half-finished canvases. The smell of her paints and linseed oil made me sick. I wanted it to. My daughter Clara found me there one afternoon. She said, "Dad, you have to eat." I looked at her. I said, "Why?" She didn't have an answer. That's when I hit the bottom. I realized I'd been rehearsing for my death, but I hadn't rehearsed for her death. I hadn't rehearsed for this leftover life. I was 100 years old, and I was more lost than that boy in the boat. At least then, my father was there to pull me out. Now there was no one. That was the hardest moment, sitting in her chair, knowing I had to keep living and having no idea how, no reason why. I'd conquered the fear of death, but I was terrified of the next sunrise. I was 100 years old, and I was more lost than that boy in the boat. At least then, my father was there to pull me out. Now there was no one. That was the hardest moment, sitting in her chair, knowing I had to keep living and having no idea how, no reason why. I'd conquered the fear of death, but I was terrified of the next sunrise. Here's what I learned, sitting in that silence. I was wrong. I thought the work was done. I thought loving knowing you would lose was the whole lesson. It's only half. The other half is this. You have to keep loving after you lose. You have to find something to love in the empty space. For me, it started with a single paintbrush. Clara had left it on the easel. One morning, I picked it up. I didn't paint. I just held it. I remembered the weight of it in Ilara's hand. That was a kind of love too, remembering. Then I went back to the garden. The roses were overgrown. Ilara's roses. I clipped one dead bloom, then another. My hands hurt, but I kept going. I was tending her love. That was a reason to see the sunrise. Don't make my mistake. Don't think the rehearsal ends when the loss comes. That's when the real performance begins. The love you practiced, you directed somewhere new, to a memory, to a child who needs to hear a story, to a patch of earth that needs tending. You don't stop loving because the biggest love is gone. You let that big love teach you how to love everything else. That's what I should have done sooner. I sat in the dark instead, wasted months. So my advice, especially if you're my age and you've lost your person, is this: be stubborn. Be stubborn about love. Find one thing, just one. A bird at the feeder, a grandchild's laugh on the phone, the way the tea steam rises in a sunbeam. Love that thing fiercely, stupidly, for no other reason than because it is here and you are here to see it. That's not a small thing. That's the point. Don't perform for anyone. Don't try to be wise. Just be there, in the garden, in the chair, with the memory, and love what's in front of you. It's the only way to fill the hollow wind. It's the only way to live the leftover life. You still have time. Maybe not years, but now is enough. This moment, listening to an old man's voice, is enough. You can start your rehearsal right here, or you can start your performance. It's the same thing. Love something you know you'll lose. Then when you lose it, love the world it left behind. That's why I'm talking to you now. This is my something. This is my love for the world Ilara left. If my story found you, maybe that was the point of my extra time. So I'm asking you to help it find someone else. If this meant something, tap that like button. It tells the algorithms this is worth hearing. Subscribe to this channel. Turn on notifications. It's not for me. I'll be gone. It's for the next person who's sitting in a sterile room or in a quiet house with a stone in their gut. Your click is a stitch in a blanket for them, a bit of warmth. And I want to hear from you. In the comments, tell me one thing, just one thing you love, knowing you'll lose it. A person, a sound, a smell. Make it specific. My wife's laugh when she's really surprised. The smell of rain on hot pavement. By naming it, you're rehearsing. You're starting the work. and you're helping everyone else who reads it remember their one thing. Share this, not because I'm special, but because the young nurse Leo shared his grandfather's story with a scared, angry man. That changed my life. Your share could be that for someone. It could be the crack of light under a door. The team here tells me they've set up a simple form if you have a story like Silas's or my grandmother's, a moment that changed how you see life's end. They'll collect them, maybe make something, a book of gates, not walls. My book? There is no book. This is it, this recording, my final buttonhole. The story is complete. The petal is ready to fall. And I am not afraid. I am in love with the whole damn dance. Now it's your turn to dance.